It's all yours.
We will be looking at this panel shortly. We tried to get a look at it before, but it was too popular an item, so we weren't able to get a view of it. We're in front of St. Mary's Church on Church Street in Champlain, New York, on this August 17th, 2013. The town is celebrating 225 years, but we are inside the village, so the village is a little over 100 years old. But it's Champlain Day, and kind of coordinating between the Champlain Day for the town and the Champlain Village Fest and the other activities. They're unveiling a new historic marker here. The building we were just looking at, I'll zoom in again one more time here, existed here in the 1800s. Right across the road where Donald Castine's home is at this point in time. And it was owned by a man named Noahdiah Moore, who was the son of Pliny Moore, the founder of the town of Champlain. And coincidentally, Noahdiah appears to have been born in 1788 also. And the significance of this today is that Noahdiah Moore was very involved in the Underground Railroad, which brought slaves up, escaped slaves, and sent them into Canada, where they got sanctuary and were able to live as free people. And a lot of folks worked underground, so to speak, to make all that happen. Celine Paquette will be our master of ceremonies. We see the mayor of the village, Greg Martin, is here, and Don Papson from the Underground Railroad Museum. Don and Vivian Papson are here, and Donald Castine is seated here, along with the local historians and village officials and people that have interest in all this. So this will happen very, very shortly here.
It's a beautiful day. Welcome. I think Pliny Moore is looking down on us and saying, "Thank you, a beautiful day. Celebrate my memory here today." First, I'd like to thank St. Mary's Church for allowing us to place this historic marker here on the grounds of St. Mary's. It seems very fitting that it be next to the Samuel D. Champlain Monument and another marker here, because Champlain was so curious about other cultures and he wanted to make friends with everyone, so very fitting. Today we're here for Noahdiah Moore. Before we proceed, I'd like to introduce some people here in the audience that I see. We have a member of the village board, Amy Gary. We have the president of the Rouse's Point Champlain Historical Society, Jerry Favreau. I see our Clinton County legislator representing Area 1, Harry McManus. I see John Cooper, a member of the town board, the Champlain Town Board. Am I missing someone else here? The mayor. I'm going to introduce him in a minute.
County historian is here, Anastasia.
I'd like to invite Mr. Mayor, Mr. Greg Martin, Mayor
Anastasia
of
Pratt,
Champlain, to say a few words.
Here's Mayor Greg Martin.
I think you can all hear me. I'd like to welcome you here in the village today. It's a very momentous day. Us history buffs will enjoy the presentation today and enhance our own feelings about the village of Champlain. It's a beautiful day. We got a lot of things going on here in the village. You can tell by the traffic that the village is experiencing a lot of folks passing through. But today we're here to honor Noahdiah and Carolyn Maddox Moore, abolitionist. This is the last link in the Underground Railroad. We have, I think, a very nice ceremony here planned for you. I hope you enjoy it. And welcome to all of you. Enjoy the festivities here in the village today and the town. This has been a long time planning these events, and we hope that you all enjoy them. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Greg. There is someone I missed. I see our Clinton County historian here, Dr. Anastasia Pratt. Thank you for being here, Anastasia.
Also, the folks
I also
who
want to
own
thank
the house
Chris
across the
Tremblay and
road.
Al Racine, who went to the museum in Ausable Chasm to bring the marker to Champlain. Then they put it in the ground, and they even painted the pole. So I want to thank the guys. They weren't able to be here because there are a few things going on at the town today. So I want to thank them for their good work. Today, the town of Champlain is honoring Pliny Moore, the founder of the town. Noahdiah is Pliny's son. I'd like to introduce you to someone who was a descendant of Pliny and Noahdiah, David Patrick. There's David. There's David. Now, some of you know David from all the historical research he has done and his beautiful annual calendar every year, which is part of our local history. Thank you, David. Our next speaker is someone who needs no introduction. However, I'll give you a brief one. This man is an educator, a researcher, a historian, a writer, and a performer. He is the past president of the North Country Underground Railroad Historical Association, a nonprofit dedicated to celebrating the importance of freedom to the survival of the human spirit and the Champlain line of the Underground Railroad. I'd like to say he single-handedly founded the museum in Ausable Chasm, but I know a lady who was right along with him, his wonderful wife, Vivian. Welcome, Vivian. When you saw Don researching, you could count on seeing Vivian right next to him. She was also helping. One can't begin to describe the work this man has done. It would take a book. He is now devoting time to researching and writing his upcoming book on key Underground Railroad figures in New York. No one has done more for this piece of North Country history than Don Papson. He started it all. I present you Don Papson.
Thank you, Celine, and thank you everyone for being here today. I have some people to thank also, and the first person is Celine, because for many years, every time I would see Celine, she would say, "What about Noahdiah Moore? What about Noahdiah Moore? Why can't we do something for Noahdiah?" And then I was just talking to Anastasia and Julie. We don't know who it was, but somebody sent out an email to all of us historians about the Pomeroy Foundation, which is a wonderful organization which paid for this sign completely. And signs like this cost over $1,000 today. So if you're going to do a marker like this, it's wonderful to have an organization that is doing this, and they're doing this throughout the state. So anyway, I decided that this was the chance to do something for Noahdiah and Caroline Maddox Moore. And fortunately, the Pomeroy Foundation agreed. Now, I want to thank also David, because everybody, if you haven't yet, you really need to look at this wonderful display that he has made, because it has some images on it that I don't have yet, which he's going to get to me. But one of the great ones is the image of the home where Caroline Maddox Moore and her husband Noahdiah lived, and it was right across the street where Mr. Castine's house is. And one day we were in the Clinton County Historical Association for the event. David and I were both there at the same time, and I saw a plate with the image of the home on the plate, and I said, "Wow, do they know what they have here? This is an image of one of the last stops of the Underground Railroad in New York." And David was able, with his technological ability, to make a wonderful image of it. This is a note from the Pomeroy Foundation, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. They were not able to send a representative today, but they asked us to share this message. Another person before I read it is Mr. Slocum, put out the publicity, Peter Slocum, who's in charge of our programs and publicity. job of getting the word out. This is on a website, right? History New York, is that it? Yeah. Okay. This is from the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. Thank you all for being here today to dedicate this historic marker commemorating the work of Noahdiah and Caroline Moore. The William G. Pomeroy Foundation established the historic Roadside Marker Grant Program in 2006. As trustees, Bill and Sandra Pomeroy felt that the history of our towns and villages was important to preserve, and we could help fill a needed gap as New York State stopped funding roadside markers in 1939. The participation and enthusiasm for the program prove that our communities want to preserve their local history, and we want to help. To date, the foundation has funded over 120 markers in 26 counties across the state. Your marker is the first and only Pomeroy Foundation marker in, they have the county wrong, Essex County. So anyway, well, I guess that means Essex County doesn't have any. We would like to also make you aware of a new grant program we recently launched to provide a plaque or sign commemorating public buildings, places, or districts in New York State that have been placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Check our website at www.wgpfoundation.org for all the details. If somebody wants to write that down afterwards, you can take a look at this. We certainly wish we could have been with you for this celebration, but since we expanded the Historic Marker Grant Program in 2012 to include the entire state of New York, it is impossible for us to attend them all. Thank you so much, Peter, Don, and everyone at the North Country Underground Railroad Historical Association for preserving and embracing this important piece of history through historic markers. Best regards, Paula Miller, Executive Director, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. And Julie just told me there's going to be a Pomeroy Foundation for Cliff Haven, where we live, which is really great. Now, you know, I'm a historian, private historian, so I really have to share a little bit of history here. I won't tell you the whole story, but I like for us to hear the words of people, rather than for us just to talk about them. I think it's very important for us to know the kinds of things that they said. And so I'm going to begin with, I don't have words of this man, but I'm going to show you an image of Wendell Lansing. He was an Underground Railroad agent in Keysville, and he was one of the agents on the line that ended here in Champlain. And he's going to be mentioned in something I'm going to read. This is Samuel Keyes, who was the head of the Underground Railroad Depot in Peru. The line that came to Champlain began, well, in the south, of course, and then thousands of people came through New York City, and they were sent up the Hudson River. Most of those people went across the central part of the state to Niagara Falls, but there were a significant number of people, we don't know how many, but they were in the hundreds, who came on the Champlain line. And the lake was the highway. That's why we call our exhibits at the museum the Champlain line of the Underground Railroad. So this was the man who was the head of the depot in Peru. He was a Quaker. What's interesting is we often think of the Quakers as being synonymous with the Underground Railroad. But Samuel Keyes, this is Samuel Keyes' wife, Caroline Moore. Excuse me, I'm getting confused. Caroline Moore lived here. This is his wife, Catherine Keyes. It's very, very likely that Catherine and Caroline knew one another. This was his second wife, and she assisted people at their home, which is now Northern Orchards in Peru. This is Samuel Keyes' nephew and his first wife. This is Stephen Keyes Smith. And we do have tours on Saturdays at the North Country Underground Railroad Museum. We go to sites in Keysville, and we stop at a barn in Peru on the Union Road that Stephen Key Smith owned. There's a hidden room in the barn, and it's believed that people were hidden there. This is Stephen Key Smith's home on Union Road, but he didn't actually own it till 1852. He held people for 20 years, so he held people at the home that he lived in before that. There are not that many Underground Railroad markers in Clinton County. There's this one, and there's one on Ausable Street in Keysville. There's one now at a home that's owned by the Sunderlands on the River Road, and this one will be joining those markers. And of course, this is Noahdiah. And this is the home that was across the street. The person who told us the most about the Underground Railroad activity in Clinton County was Stephen Key Smith. And this is what he had to say in 1887. This interview is actually, the original document is in Special Collections at SUNY Plattsburgh. Special Collections at SUNY Plattsburgh is a wonderful archives. Stephen Key Smith said, "I first became acquainted with the Underground Railroad 20 years or more before the war. Samuel Keyes was the head of the depot in Peru. His son John Keyes, myself, and Wendell Lansing at Keysville were actors. There were stations at Albany, Troy, Glens Falls, and then here in Peru. The Negroes would come through the woods and be nearly famished. I kept them and fed them for 1 or 2 days, and then ran them along to Noahdiah Moore's in Champlain. Mr. Keyes kept fast horses. Noahdiah was a philanthropist. He first came to the Union and stirred us up to work in the anti-slavery cause. His place was a station in the Underground Railroad in Champlain, about 7 miles from Canada." It's a little off there. He went with the Negroes to Canada and looked out places for them to work. So what we learn from this is the idea of working with the Underground Railroad didn't initiate with the Quakers. It was Noahdiah Moore who went to the Quaker Union and stirred them up to get involved in this cause. In 1839, Noahdiah expressed his feelings about slavery in a speech that he gave here in the village of Champlain. And this is a direct quote from what he said. "The wretched black is torn from all he holds dear on earth and thrown, shackled into the bark which conveys him to a fearful distance from the only beings in the wide world who can behold his sable visage without disgust. Yes, proud Christian slaveholder, who reclineth at thy ease under the sumptuous canopy of luxury, whipped from the back of the unresisting African. Remember that he too can feel and bleed, and remember also that there is a God who registers his sufferings to thy account. Tremble at the idea that a day will yet arrive when that register will be read. Then shall the poor and despised Negro arise and be greeted by the smiles of the beneficent Creator. And thou, great and mighty in thine own estimation, shall be humbled to the dust under the awful frown of his displeasure." Now what's interesting is, sons and daughters rebel against their parents. It's possible he could not have said these words without thinking somewhat of his father, because Plenty Moore was one of the prominent men in Clinton County who was a slave owner. He purchased a little girl when she was 5 years old in Kinderhook, when Noahdiah was 5. So Noahdiah grew up with an enslaved child. And what's important about Plenty Moore is that when he died, he stipulated in his will that Phyllis would be cared for, because she had been freed and she had chosen to stay with the family. So we need to understand that the relationships that have happened, especially since the Civil War, the separation between people of color and people of non-color, was not that way in New York. Because in New York, we had small numbers of enslaved people in those families, and very often they lived in the home. A little bit more about Noahdiah. On Independence Day morning, 1839, abolitionists met in the Congregational Church in Keysville for a regional anti-slavery convention. They elected Noahdiah Moore provisional chairman. What's important about Keysville is that Noahdiah Moore's brother-in-law, Abram Brinkerhoff, had been a minister there, and the minister at the time of this 1839 convention was Caroline Maddox Moore's cousin. So there was a familial link between Keysville and Champlain. I can't help but think that part of that link was Underground Railroad related. And one of these historic markers is in front of a home behind the old Congregational Church, which is now a Masonic Lodge. When abolitionists from 16 northeastern New York counties and Vermont met in Albany on April 20th, 1842, to establish the Eastern New York Anti-Slavery Society, Noahdiah Moore was elected vice president for Clinton County. The society's corresponding secretary, Reverend Abel Brown, regularly forwarded fugitive slaves to Canada from Albany. On October 25th, 1843, during a lecture tour of northeastern New York, Reverend Brown stayed in the Moore's home, where he wrote the following note to his wife, Catherine Swan Brown. I left Plattsburgh at 9 o'clock yesterday, rode 14 miles to Chazy, lectured twice, and then was taken by Mr. Moore and brought 7 miles about 9 o'clock, Saturday night, to this his truly hospitable mansion. I can only say of them that they are making me very comfortable. We don't have a document to prove it, but I believe that Abel Brown was one of the people who was sending people up here to Noahdiah Moore. Reverend Brown, during his short life, he died when he was in his early 30s, assisted more than 1,000 people on the Underground Railroad. In 1843, the Friends of Liberty met in Plattsburgh. On August the 1st, 1843, the 9th anniversary of the day Great Britain abolished slavery in her empire, Noahdiah Moore and 2 other delegates sent a report of the meeting to Boston's Emancipator and Free American. They listed a litany of injustices which had been perpetrated against abolitionists, ending with a recollection of the mob which had attacked immediate abolitionists in Plattsburgh in 1837. There is a historic marker in front of the Presbyterian Church in Plattsburgh on Brinkerhoff Street, because initially when the abolitionists from the Clinton County decided to form a countywide association, the Methodists and the Presbyterians denied them use of their churches. But then, shortly after the Clinton County society was formed, the Presbyterians changed their mind and let them meet in their church. But they were greeted in Plattsburgh by a mob, called them names, threw rotten eggs at them, and they went to the Old Stone Church on Route 22 in Beekmantown, and that's where they finished their proceedings. We have a copy of that report, so we know all the people who were there. But this is what, and we have Stephen Keysmith's recollections of that event, but I found this in my research, and this is Noahdiah Moore's statement about what happened. He's talking about the tyrant power has stretched its iron hand across Mason and Dixon's line and grappled with the free institutions of our free colored citizens and dragged them into perpetual slavery. It has instigated mobs through the length and breadth of the free states. There is hardly a county in this state that has not been the scene of a disgraceful mob, our own county has not escaped. It has driven from our county town by threats, eggs, and the celebrated protest signed by 114 gentlemen of property and standing of Plattsburgh and its vicinity, the Friends of Liberty who assembled there to organize an anti-slavery society. But we will not further particularize. The history of the last 9 years, however, will furnish a fearful list. To save our country from irretrievable ruin, we must wrest our country from the scepter, from slavery, and give it to liberty. Therefore, we have organized the Liberty Party. The Liberty Party was a political party that was organized in 1840 to abolish slavery by political means. This was a very controversial approach because William Lloyd Garrison, who was one of the founders of the American Anti-Slavery Society, was absolutely opposed to political involvement. But the process of ending slavery was extremely slow, and some people became impatient, and they said, we need to approach this in a political manner. And Noahdiah Moore was the head of the Liberty Party in Clinton County. I do want to share one other thing. It's we need to understand that, as I've already pointed out, the issue was very divisive in the churches, but also within the homes. And Carolina Noahdiah's daughter, Laura, did not approve of what her parents were doing. Now, I know a reporter asked Celine, where were the people hidden? And she didn't know how to answer that question, but they were hidden. They were in the home. We know that because of this letter that Laura wrote. Laura wrote a letter to her sister, and she was not pleased. She said, we have had a darky here, and don't you think he slept in our spare bedroom and ate at our table and was treated as any white man would have been? What a sin. I can never bring my mind to it. I do think they are so disgusting. I think there were some very heavy discussions in the family, don't you think? I mean, with Noahdiah being so involved and Caroline Maddox Moore being so involved in the female anti-slavery society of Champlain. But, you know, it was in the family, and David has found a wonderful image of Ovid Minor, who was married to Laura's sister, and he was an Underground Railroad agent in Syracuse. I'm going to end with just a statement, a brief little statement that was made in 1859 when Noahdiah died. It says, died in Champlain, New York, February 9th, Noahdiah Moore, Esquire, age 71 years, being liberally educated, of enlarged and liberal views, and with a heart that sympathized warmly in every movement that promised to promote the material, intellectual, social, moral, or religious interests of society. His death is truly a public loss, which is widely felt and not easily supplied. To the valuable educational privilege which the place enjoys, he was a liberal contributor. In the temperance cause, he was from the beginning an ardent and fearful laborer. In the heart and from principle, strongly averse to injustice and oppression in every form, the anti-slavery movement early found him a ready and efficient friend and advocate. I think that this is a very special moment for me, you know, to honor someone of this stature. And I'm so glad that you're here today so that I was able to share what I have learned of him so far. Because this is your legacy, this is your heritage here in Champlain. This was one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad into New York, from New York into Canada, and he took people over to Lacole and found jobs for them. So thank you very much for allowing me to share this with you.
Thank you so much, Don. I think you'll agree that he's quite a researcher and a historian on this topic. Thank you. I also would like to recognize my friend Bob Cheeseman, a historian in Chazy. Bob is just great to work with. The next person is a very impressive lady. Jacqueline Madison is the current president of the North Country Underground Railroad Historical Association and the North Star Museum. She succeeded Don Papson in October 2012. She is also the director of the Moore's Free Library, a position she has held since May 2010. Prior to that, Jacqueline was the principal information analyst at Pfizer from 1997 to 2010. I present you Jacqueline Madison.
I'm actually following in some very big steps here. Don, you can never beat him. But I'm here to really provide a perspective from my culture. Noahdiah Moore did something that was never thought of at that time. Slavery is harmful to those enslaved, but it's even more harmful to those who are doing the enslaving. I'm sure that the slaves, when they reached this point, were extremely thankful to Noahdiah Moore and his wife, Caroline, for helping them to get across to freedom and for helping them to find jobs and homes. That is something I don't even think some people would do today. And to do it in 1839, 1840s, in that time frame, was really unheard of. I can't say that my family came through here. I cannot find that. In fact, I think my family stayed south. But I can only imagine what those individuals would have felt. At this time, Don has really given you Noahdiah Moore's history. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Underground Railroad and ask that you visit it. And to say that it's a great place. We have stories like Noahdiah. We also have John Thomas, Lavinia Bell, who actually came through Rouse's Point, may have came through Champlain, and who these are individuals who got to freedom because of people like Noahdiah, Samuel P. Smith, and others. And to say that we will be having our annual meeting today, and that at 5:30 today. I know it's going to be conflicting with the Gibson brothers, so if you do get a moment, please come by. We will have hamburgers and hot dogs for that as well. The museum itself is phenomenal. Don did an absolutely spectacular job. The exhibits, as Celine spoke, Don has been researching these for years along with Vivian. I don't know how Vivian put up with it for so long. But he really got to the facts. And it's really spectacular. That gave me a break, didn't it?
Two ambulances go by here at
really
11:30.
I can say with Don was able to get the town of Chesterfield's help. We also worked with the Ausable Chasm business, and it is really quite, I put it up in par with Smithsonian for museums. It's not as large as the museum, but if Don has a say, it probably will get to that size. I think there is that link that Don mentioned between Champlain and the Keysville area. I think all along this area, Don has put it on the map. that this whole route really helped many individuals get to freedom. And in John Thomas's case, actually, he ended up staying in the area, not in Champlain area, but more towards the Malone area. So come in, come see the exhibits, come talk to the docents that we have there. They're wonderful, they're spectacular. And I want you, as citizens of the Champlain community, to be extremely proud of Noahdiah Moore and those who worked with him, his wife, Caroline, of what they did for individuals that they really didn't know anything about. And I can only say I am extremely grateful to this individual. Thank you so much.
I want to mention a historic booklet that has been prepared for today's Champlain Day. It's about the town, but the inside back cover is dedicated to Noahdiah Moore. These are available for sale at the town today. You know, we had a big afternoon there, so hope to see you there. Now comes the moment we've been waiting for. So if Don and Jackie and the mayor Okay. You have to figure out how to pull that off.
Doc, you want to get over here?
Need one more tall person. There we go. Abolitionist Noahdiah and Caroline Moore lived across the street in the Moore Mansion from 1828 to 1873. They helped convey escaped slaves to Canada.
I think this is pretty special. It's a gift from the Pomeroy Foundation, and we thank Don for writing the grant to help us obtain this. Can't thank you enough. You do so much for us. The mayor has invited everyone to continue enjoying today's festivities in Riverside Park. We also invite you to visit the Samuel D. Champlain History Center, where we have two special exhibits today. So we'd love to see you there. And later this afternoon, we have another ceremony at 4 o'clock at the town office, and then the Gibson Brothers. So enjoy your day, everyone, and thank you very much for coming.
Okay, once again, the home was located across the road where the Donald Castine family resides. Not the house that Noahdiah Moore lived in. That is long since gone. And although it says they lived there till 1873, it looked like the date on his under his picture said he died in 1859, so maybe his family continued to live there until 1873. But it's out here on the front lawn of St. Mary's Church in Champlain. There's also another marker, of course, in front of the Samuel D. Champlain Monument. This monument was the first one erected in the United States in honor of Samuel D. Champlain, and that happened back in 1907, and there's been a historical marker and a wayside panel depicting that. So we're going to go over, and if folks stop gathering around that panel that David Patrick made, we'll take a closer look at that and wrap this up.
No, because that's the first time I see
Not sure what's going to happen with this wayside panel type of a thing. It's just sitting out here. It's not a wayside panel, but very nicely done by David Patrick. It shows the Moore House, which was located across the road in 1828. Apparently there was a school in that area in 1815. This appears to be a side view because there's a little shot here of the Methodist Church. So this possibly would have been the frontal view running toward Church Street. Oh no, there we go. Here's Church Street right here. So there we go. There's Church Street. The school is right on the street, and there apparently is where the Methodist Church sits today. So the little school was probably closer to where the old meat locker building that came down a year and a half ago. And Noahdiah's mansion encompassed the meat locker location apparently, and the present day Donald and Georgianne Castine's home. And this was done off a piece of porcelain that, as Don Papson related, that he and David Patrick spotted up to Clinton County Historical Association Museum, and when they saw that, they said, wow, there is a very rare photo of the home of an abolitionist and a member of the Underground Railroad. There's a picture of Reverend Ovid Minor, who was an abolitionist in Syracuse. He married Noahdiah's oldest daughter, Eliza, who was the aunt to Elizabeth Nye McClellan. McClellan family was very close to the Minor family, and this 1885 photo has a young Hugh and Malcolm McClellan in it, along with their father Charles. Not quite sure what photo he's referring to there. Here is a photo of, I would guess, Caroline. Yep. So this would be Pliny Moore's daughter-in-law and the wife of Noahdiah Moore. Here is Noahdiah Moore, and the date says 1788 to 1859, so that would make him 59 plus 12 years, so that's about 71 years old when he died. And another shot of him, and a rather large couple of paragraphs here. We'll try to read those. Is the oldest child of Pliny Moore. Went to school in Montreal and Plattsburgh. Graduated from Middlebury College. Inherited his father's land in 1822 on Church Street. He built his mansion, his main residence. The house burned down in the Great Fire in 1873, which also burned down the adjacent school, Methodist Church, and parsonage, so that was a predecessor to the brick building that we see now. He owned several farms and sawmills and founded the Champlain Agricultural Works on Main Street along the Upper Bridge. He was very active in politics, in the Presbyterian Church, and obviously in the anti-slavery movement. And he was an advocate for the incorporation of the village of Champlain, but this did not happen until after his death in 1873. And 1873, coincidentally, was the year that his house burnt after he died. So that was laid out by David Patrick. He's done so much to preserve the history in and around Champlain. So that'll wrap up our coverage here of the remembrance for Noahdiah Moore, the Underground Railroad here in the village of Champlain. Watching viewer-supported local television, TV we think is worth your support, and we'd appreciate it if more of you would step up to the plate and provide funding for our programming and keep this kind of programming coming, because without that support, we would not be able to be here. Thanks for watching.